Hi everybody, welcome back. This is video 4 of Dragons, and today we're going to be talking about shape language. Shape language. What is it? Now, quite a few of you have been asking that question. Shapes. Do they have a language? Can they speak to one another? Whether or not shapes can actually speak to each other, I don't know, but I do know that shapes have been used in language in the form of pictures. Pictograms. Pictograms have been used for a long time for specific characters. The Chinese language uses them to this day. They're simplified forms, though, of what were drawings, of images, of forms that they could all relate to. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at shapes, language, and let's break that down to shapes. What are they? And then we'll talk about the language part for you.
Two-dimensional shapes are squares, circles, and triangles. They're flat and non-dimensional. So what happens when two-dimensional shapes become three-dimensional forms? A triangle becomes a pyramid, a circle becomes a sphere, and a square becomes a cube. But what happens when we combine these forms together? What happens when a pyramid and a sphere combine? Well, traditionally that would create a cone, but it could also create something else. How about a sphere and a square? Well, traditionally that would create a cylinder, but why not an arch? And how about a cube and a pyramid? Well, that would create a trapezoid and lots of other possibilities.
Okay, you guys, so we've talked about 2D shapes making three-dimensional forms. We've also talked about how combining those shapes together creates new and unusual shapes. But did you know that shapes have been associated with different feelings and moods? This is a typical industry design standard. Shape language is a big deal because it makes things easily recognizable to the viewer. It makes people immediately be able to say, oh, hey, there's that square. Or, oh, hey, there's that circle character. I know who that is. Even if you can't necessarily see the details of that person, just the very shape of them, their silhouette will tell you who they are. And it's the same for environments. You'll see it time and time again. Different environments, different places will have a different aesthetic. Certain cities will look a certain way, and because perhaps all the buildings are rounded or they're incredibly angular and jutty. There is meaning put onto different shapes. People relate to shapes differently, and like with most things, you could almost say there are stereotypes you could find about certain shapes, such as triangles are going to be active. They can sometimes be unstable. They can be sharp, dangerous. Squares are stable. They can be static. They can be strong, a foundation. Circles are usually soft, fluid, safe, comforting. Oftentimes too, because when you combine it with any of the others, you start getting those rounded shapes. Now, besides having those meanings, they have other meanings too. They're oftentimes associated with the elements: earth, fire, water and air. I'm sure you guys have seen a few shows that use elements and shapes together. And it's not just production in the entertainment industry that does this. It's also in fine art. With paintings, you'll see it a lot. With sculptures. Typically, with any design, you start with fundamental shapes, basic shapes, the main shape, the big shape, and then you break it down to the details. And it's the same as what you are going to be doing with your dragon. But what I want you to do now is I want you to identify shape language. I want you to start seeing it everywhere around you. And I want you to notice the combinations too, because it's not always just one shape when things are created. Like, so when you see a character, it's typically not just going to be one shape. They'll probably be a combination, but you can discover what that basic fundamental shapes are, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want you to look for. So, your homework. It's probably the best homework you're gonna have, because at least part of it, because there's two parts. Part one is gonna be fantastic, because I'm gonna tell you, go watch all those animation shows you love. Watch them, but you're gonna have to watch them a little bit differently. While you're enjoying them, you're going to have to, like take a moment, and I want you to pause, and then I want you to identify with your character, or a good character, a bad character, whatever that you like. What are the shapes that they're made out of? What are the fundamental shapes? Are they long and skinny? Are they rounded? Do they have a triangle for a head? Because there are characters who have triangles for heads, right? How are they constructed? How are they put together? I also want you to do that with the environment. Look at the environment, look at the world that's being created. Are there multiple places your character's going in that world? Are they different? If they're different, how are they different? How are those shapes in those worlds different from one another? Break it down to the basic shapes. Identify why, and then think about what's the feeling of this location to that location, and what are the shapes they're using? Could there be a connection? So that's the really fun part. Now the next part is even more fun. It's a little bit more challenging though, because what I want you to do is I want you to identify your own shapes to the words you use to describe your positive and negative elements that you did in last week's video. For some of you, that's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be really easy. For others, you might be like, oh my God, this is gonna be hard. But you have all the tools, right? You now know the shapes. You know that they're associated with different meanings, and they have different feelings because of those different meanings. Now, what you have to figure out is with those words that you used, with the positive and the negative, which shapes are best for them? Which shapes best describe them? Is it a pure shape? Is it just a triangle? Is it just a circle? Or is it a combination? That's the other thing. If it's a combination, that's great, not a problem. But why? And what combination is it? Is it 20% this and 80% this? Or is it 50-50? These are the things I want you to think about, because this is what we're going to be talking about in the next class together. So you have a little bit of homework, but it's fun homework. You get to watch. You have my okay. I can't speak for your parents. I can't speak for Miss Lisette. Just tell them this is your homework. You have to do it. You have to go watch these shows. It's very important, because it is. It's really important. This is about you identifying shape language and instead of just being a viewer and just watching it, you're starting to understand that there's a lot of deep choices being made at a fundamental level with these shows that you probably never even considered. You never probably thought that the people who were making it were thinking about these things, but they are. And they're making a lot of choices, and they're trying to get their point across to you through just simple design using shape language. So, all right, you guys, go to it. See you soon. Peace.